All right, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm really excited because our topic for today is modifying an exercise routine. So how to change it up so that it's doable for you. And I feel like this is such an important topic because if you don't have a routine that's helpful for you, that you enjoy doing or that you can do successfully, you're probably not going to stay consistent. So it's really important to feel that you have a plan that you enjoy, and not only that, but you can stay consistent with it. We're not really talking about functional exercise today, but it's a big topic that's really important when it comes to creating your exercise routine. Okay. So these are all the different ways. Don't mind my weights back here. I recently got this carpet. I actually really like it. And it's still settling. So there's still some bumps in the carpet. Anyways, okay. So standing marching, you can do with a rollator if you want, or a cane or anything. And standing marching looks like this. I'll show you from this side. So you're up and up. So this is strengthening your hip flexors. Your hip flexors are required to walk forward. So if I need to take a step forward, one of the many movements I need to do is march like this. So standing marching is going to be a really great option for you. So this would be standing marching. Seated marching in an upright position. So you can see I'm not touching the back of the chair. So sitting upright or sitting up tall would look like this. Now this oftentimes is harder than standing because your hips are already flexed. So your hips are already bent, and now you're trying to bend even more, which oftentimes is way more challenging than when you're standing. Your hips are straight and you're bending from a straight position, and that can be easier. So you're not alone if standing feels easier for you. But this is regular sitting up tall marching. You can also sit reclined. So you lean back further. This option is usually easier than sitting up tall. This is usually the hardest, but you can recline, tighten your abdominal muscles, and march from here. So again, that's usually a little bit easier, but everyone's going to be different. So you can march from there. So that's 3 positions. Now I'm going to come down to the floor, but keep in mind, I'm doing them here because I don't have a bed or a couch in this room, but you don't have to get down to the floor. You can do these options on your own bed or couch. Only do them on the floor if you can get up safely. So the first option is hook lying, which is this. So you're lying on your back, your knees are bent, and your feet are on the floor. Marching from this position looks like this. So same thing. Knees up, knees are coming up towards my face, just like they were when I was sitting and standing. Now a hook lying position with your legs raised looks like this. And marching would look like this. And it was actually one of my clients who reminded me of this. She said that this is easier for her to do than with her feet on the floor. So that is hook lying with your feet up. Next, you've got lying on your side. I like to prop my head up, but you can have your arms down, whatever feels comfortable to you. And here you have 2 options. Option number 1 is just bring your top knee up towards your face. So it's still the same marching movement, still your knee bending, or sorry, not your knee, your hip bending, and your knee coming up towards your face. Another option would be both knees at the same time, and this usually is harder, but you bring both knees up and down, up and down. Now, if you did just do the top leg, now, of course, you'd have to flip over and do the other side as well. So that would be lying on your side. Now, as I mentioned, lying on your stomach and quadruped are the 2 options that I would very rarely give. They are either harder or just work the muscles in a different way, but I do want to show you the options. So quadruped is when you are on your hands and knees and it's still marching. So you're going to bring your knee up towards your face, just like all the other exercises, and it looks like this. You can't get as much movement. As you can see, this is what feels comfortable to me, and it's much less than all the other positions. But this is quadruped marching. And then lastly, and this one's going to be hard for you guys to see, is the lying on your stomach. So you can lie on your stomach. And I'm going to bend this knee just so you can see it a little bit better. So with this leg, what I'm going to do is push my knee down into the floor. So you guys can't see much because my leg is not physically moving. This is called an isometric strengthening exercise where you're using your hip flexors, but no movement is occurring. So what I'm going to do right now is press this knee down toward the floor. Press, 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 and relax. And press and relax. So I'm using my hip flexors and trying to bend it. And then we do the same thing on the other side. So bring that knee in. Again, I very rarely give this position, but it is an option. So that was just marching, and that was just positions. We're about to go over a whole bunch of other ways that you can modify exercises, but positions is one of them. So if you feel like the position is just too challenging, switch it up. With that said, if all positions are too hard, there might be some exercises that you notice zero muscle movement. I just want to remind you, but neuroplasticity is the ability of your brain, of all of our brains, to either strengthen neural pathways that do exist, they're just weak, in addition to find brand new neural pathways. So if you're trying to do, let's just stick with the example of marching. If you're trying to march a leg and it is not moving at all, what that means is that you don't have a successful neural pathway from your brain all the way down to your hip flexors. So what that means is that you should still do the exercise, which I know might sound counterintuitive. It might feel like, well, it's not working, so give me something else to do, or let's skip that, let's move on to a different muscle group. But the only way that you can get your body and brain, neural pathways, spinal cord, to actually find a neural pathway that works from your brain to your hip flexors is to practice movement, even if there's no movement. With every repetition that you do, even if there's no movement, your brain is trying to find a new way to get from point A to point B. So even if you have very little movement, still do the exercise. Pick whatever position you felt was easiest, even if there was no movement. Linda says, is it better to do the hardest if you can? Ooh, great question. It's not necessarily better to do the hardest. It's best to do whichever is in the functional positions that you need. So for example, marching, as I just demonstrated, is required for walking, but it's also required to get out of a car, to get out of a shower if you're sitting down and you're showering, to get out of bed, to shimmy around in your chair, to reposition yourself. So when you're walking, you're standing. So in my opinion, the best position to strengthen your hip flexors, if you have a goal of walking better or stair climbing better, would be standing. However, as I just mentioned, we need our hip flexors for lots of seated things too. So seated is equally as great. So I usually give my missing link members both of those because we want our brains, and this kind of gets into our functional exercise presentation, but we want our brains to understand what we're trying to do and to have that carry over so that you get stronger hip flexors and better walking. You get stronger hip flexors and you can sit down more safely. And can you stand up holding, or sorry, can you march standing up holding on? Absolutely. You can hold on to a countertop that's dry that you won't slip on, a rollator, a cane, whatever you can that won't move. Karen, is if one side is much weaker than the other, should you still do both equally? So I think you probably asked that question prior to me saying to always do them, but yes, it is worth doing them equally. Okay, all right, so let's get back to it. So again, position is just one thing. It's usually the first thing that I suggest doing if you need to modify your exercise routine or a specific exercise. What about using a strap or an aid when not much movement is seen? Yeah, absolutely. You know, the modifications that I mentioned are just my usual go-tos, but I love these other ideas. So if you guys use any other modifications that I didn't mention, please let us know, and I'm more than happy to say them out loud for everyone. So yeah, another way that you can modify is to make the exercise easier by using a resistance band or an exercise strap to help make the exercise easier. Absolutely. Good one, Kevin. Let's see. Darlene says, I use yoga blocks and straps. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great option. Okay. This was informative and motivating. I'm so happy to hear that. I think that modifying your exercises can be so motivating and inspiring and give you hope because you now have a way that you can exercise, whereas you may have been feeling like there's nothing that I can do. There's so many ways you can modify. After following you on here these past 2 years, I am now able to feel physically reliable enough to work 1 day a month. I love that. Thank you, Dr. Gretchen, because this helps me feel more like a real person again. That is amazing, Gwen. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's so awesome. Are there a lot of exercises that can be done even in bed? A little goes a long way. Once you get started, it gets easier. Yeah, in the missing link in my online MS wellness program, we have a 13-minute video that's literally called exercises to do in bed. It's just a 13-minute routine that you can do. But yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm a huge advocate for exercising in any position, anywhere that you can. You can do marching in bed. You could, you know, move your ankles. If you're sitting up in bed with your legs out straight, you can do, you know, ankle lifts like this. You can, it'll be the other way, but you can bend your knee and straighten your knee. And that's marching and knee bending. You could do some upper body exercises. You could do some cardio, some upper body jumping jacks, some ab lean back. So there's tons of different exercises that you can do in bed. Pam, does doing a yoga class or exercise class count as exercise? Great question. Yes, absolutely. There's so many forms of exercise. As you just mentioned, Pam, a yoga class or an exercise class are options, you know, swimming, tai chi, dance, those absolutely count as exercise. You know, there's two different types of exercise: general exercise and then functional exercise. There's a time and place for both, but then there's this third category that is implementing. So implementing these exercises into your day as well. And so general exercise classes or yoga classes, swimming are great forms of general exercise that are great for our body. It's not the same as MS specific. So as my missing link members in here know, I always do like to suggest both. If you only do general strengthening, like general yoga classes, general strengthening or exercise classes, you might not notice improvements in specific functions like walking, stair climbing, etc. So I do think it is important to do both types. Or if you're just going to choose one, just doing the MS specific functional exercises. I'm so, so grateful for all of you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in.